Hello and welcome back to the Building Humans series. This is the deep dive where we really try to stop looking at education as just this checklist of skills. Reading, writing, arithmetic, just checking off the boxes, and we start looking at it as a construction project. But I mean, we aren't constructing a building here. We're constructing a soul. We're constructing a mind. We are, literally constructing a human being from the ground up.
It's a profound way to look at it, isn't it? And it's wonderful to be back. I think before we even jump in, we have to start by acknowledging the architects behind this entire series. The reason we can have this conversation, the reason we're here, is thanks to the incredible collaboration between the Al-Mahaba Foundation and the Dar el-Kalema Publishing House.
Absolutely. And I love their mission because it's not just about academic rigor, though that's definitely there. It's about human warmth. It's about blending the professional with the personal. And frankly, considering the topic we have on the table today, we are going to need a lot of that warmth because we're tackling something that gives a lot of parents absolute cold sweats.
Cold sweats is a very, very accurate way to put it, yes.
Today, we're talking about literacy, specifically the act of writing. Now, before we even get into the source material, I want you, our listener, to visualize something with me. Just for a second. Close your eyes. Picture a standard traditional classroom, or maybe it's just a kitchen table, and a child is learning to write. What do you see? What do you feel?
Oh, I feel tension immediately. I see tension.
Right. I see a little 6-year-old and they're gripping a pencil so hard their knuckles are turning white. I see a notebook with those intimidating dotted lines, the 3 lines. I see an eraser that's been used so many times and the paper is literally tearing. It's fuzzy. And I can hear a voice, a parent or a teacher, hovering over their shoulder saying, no, no, stay on the line. That loop isn't round enough. Do it again. Focus. Just focus.
The universal nightmare.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a struggle. And we've somehow, as a culture, we've accepted this narrative that learning to write is a chore. It has to be. It's a burden. It's like pushing a boulder up a steep, steep hill. We just assume it requires tears and discipline and correction and a lot of painful repetition.
Exactly. We've bought into this idea that if it isn't hard, it isn't really learning. But today, we are going to flip that narrative completely on its head, just turn it upside down. We are diving into a source titled The Explosion of Writing. And I have to say, just the title alone, it just stops you in your tracks. Explosion.
It is an incredibly powerful word.
It doesn't say the slow trudge of writing. It doesn't say, the gradual improvement of penmanship. It says explosion, which suggests something, I don't know, volatile, something energetic, something sudden.
And that is exactly what Dr. Maria Montessori observed in her work. She didn't see writing as a slow, painful trickle of information. She saw it as a volcanic eruption of ability.
Okay, so that's the central mystery we are here to unpack today. How do we get from that nightmare scenario, the tears, the broken pencil points, the frustration, to an explosion? How does a child go from zero, literally not knowing how to form a letter to writing on everything in sight, including, as we're going to discuss in a bit, a loaf of bread?
A loaf of bread, yes.
Mhm.
That's a crucial and quite famous part of the story.
But how does that happen without the boot camp? How does it happen without the drill sergeant standing over them, correcting every little curve?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is just fascinating because it requires us to completely dismantle our understanding of what writing actually is. We have to break it down. We have to break it down to its atomic parts.
Okay, so let's dismantle it. Where do we even begin?
We begin with the anatomy of the act itself. The source material draws a very sharp, very scientific line between two things that we almost always lump together. It distinguishes between the physical act of writing and the mental act of writing.
Physical versus mental, okay. To me as an adult, those feel like the same thing. They feel totally simultaneous. If I want to write grocery list, I think it and my hand does it. It feels like one fluid motion.
Of course it does. That's because you're an expert. You have spent decades and decades automating that connection. That neurological pathway is a superhighway for you. But if you strip it back to how it's built in the first place, they are two completely different mountains to climb for a child.
Okay, so break them down for me. What exactly is the mental act?
The mental act is the intellect. It's the
Oh.
composition. It's knowing that you have something you want to say. It's the ability to compose a thought, to structure a sentence. It's knowing that the word cat is made up of the sounds C-A-T. It's the desire to communicate in the first place. There's all the software running in the brain.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. That's the content, the message.
Precisely. The message itself. Then you have the physical act, The hardware, this is the mechanism of the hand, is the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments. It is the incredible coordination required to hold a very thin, very awkward instrument, a pencil or a pen, and manipulate it in these tiny, precise geometric movements to form symbols.
Which, I mean, if you actually stop and watch your own hand while you write, it's incredibly complex. The amount of tiny adjustments your fingers are making it's mind-boggling.
It's remarkably complex. It involves so much: fine motor skills, pressure control, spatial awareness on the page. And here's the tragedy of the traditional method, the one that causes all the tears.
Yeah.
We ask a 4 or 5-year-old child to learn both of these enormous things at the exact same moment.
Right. We just throw them into the deep end of the pool and yell, "Swim!"
We basically say, okay, little one, I want you to figure out how to spell the word cat, and at the same time, figure out what a C even looks like. And by the way, I also need you to control this wiggly stick with muscles in your hand that you haven't even fully developed yet. Oh, and keep it between these two tiny lines.
It's just complete cognitive overload.
It's cognitive and physical overload. They collide. The mind might be ready to say cat, it knows the sounds, but the hand is weak and clumsy, it can't obey.
Mm.
Or maybe the hand is strong and ready to move, but the mind is still confused about the spelling or the direction of the letter B versus D. And when those two frustrations collide, the mental and the physical, that's when you get the tears. That's when you get the I can't do this, the I hate writing.
So the Montessori discovery, this whole explosion, it's based on separating these two, on tackling them one at a time.
That is the absolute core of it. The source describes it as a miracle of preparation.
Hmm.
Montessori realized, through observation, not theory, that if you can prepare the hand separately, if you can handle the physical mechanism first, before you even ask the child to compose or spell, you clear the path. You remove one of the mountains.
So you're building the hardware before you try to install the software.
That is the perfect way to put it. And this brings us to this beautiful concept of storing energy. The source uses this phrase, and I just love it. It says, we are storing the movement.
Storing movement. That sounds almost sci-fi, like we're charging a battery in the child's hand.
That is the perfect analogy. It really is. Think of a battery. You plug it into the wall. You don't see the electricity flowing. You don't see anything dramatic happening on the outside. But inside, that potential is building. It's filling up cell by cell, silently.
Okay, I love that. So how do we charge a child's hand? What's the charger in this analogy?
The charger is a very specific and now very iconic tool mentioned in the source material. The sandpaper letters.
Sandpaper letters, I've heard of these, but I'm not totally sure I know what they are. Paint a picture for us. What do they look like?
Imagine a smooth wooden board. Sometimes they're painted, traditionally pink for consonants and blue for vowels. And glued onto that smooth board is a letter, let's use the letter A as an example, cut out of rough, grainy sandpaper.
Standard sandpaper, like what you'd get at a hardware store.
Yes, exactly. It's all about the texture. The contrast is the key. You have the smooth background and the rough, tactile letter.
And what does the child do with this? I mean, do they just look at it, memorize the shape?
No. Looking isn't enough. Not at all. Remember, we are training the hand, not just the eye. The whole point is to bypass the abstract and go straight to the physical. The child traces the letter. They are shown how to use their index finger and their middle finger together, the same two fingers they will eventually use to grip a pencil, and they trace the shape of the A over and over.
Ah, okay, so they're mimicking the exact motion of writing, but without the complexity of holding a pencil.
Precisely. They are touching, they are feeling the path of the letter.
Yeah.
And because of that rough texture, it creates a very, very strong sensory impression on their fingertips.
It's tactile. It's not just visual.
It is deeply tactile. And think about what we call the control of error. That's a core Montessori principle. In a normal notebook, if a child's pencil goes off the dotted line, who corrects them?
The teacher or the parent. And, usually with a sigh or a red pen.
Right. An external authority figure says, you made a mistake. There's a judgment attached. But with the sandpaper letter, if the child's fingers slip off the rough sandpaper onto the smooth wood, who tells them they've gone off course?
Their own finger, their own sense of touch.
Their own sensory system becomes the teacher. They feel the difference immediately. The roughness holds them on the path. The smoothness signals they've strayed. The material itself guides the hand. There's no shame.
It's completely self-correcting. That's a huge shift.
It's a game changer. And here's the why that matters so much. To the child, this does not feel like work at all. If you tell a 4-year-old, sit down and practice your penmanship, they will find a million other things to do. They'll run away. But if you present this beautiful object and say, would you like to touch this? Feel how rough this is. What happens?
They're immediately curious. It's a game.
Hmm.
It's sensory exploration.
It is sensory play, pure and simple. So they trace it over and over again. They might close their eyes and just feel the shape. They're just touching. But what's happening on a physiological level is that they are programming their muscles. They are building pathways in the brain. They are, as the source says, storing the movement.
They're building the muscle memory of the entire alphabet. The hand is learning all the curves, the straight lines, the geometry, completely independent of the mental task of spelling. Yes, the hand is becoming an intelligent instrument in its own right. And this happens over a period of weeks or months. It's the silent, joyful charging of the battery. The child isn't writing on paper yet. They aren't struggling with a pencil. They are just touching. They are preparing.
So the potential is building up day by day. The energy is stored. The battery is filling.
And then one day
Yeah.
comes the moment, the explosion.
Describe this moment for us. The source makes it sound so dramatic. I mean, is it really that sudden?
It often is. And it's dramatic because it's a complete surprise, even and maybe especially to the child.
So how does it happen? What's the trigger?
The trigger is usually just the child finally picking up a writing instrument with intent. Maybe it's a piece of chalk at a chalkboard or a crayon or a pencil. And they put it to the surface. And suddenly, the hand just takes over. The muscle memory is so strong, so well prepared from all that tracing, that the hand just goes. It knows what to do.
It executes the program that's been silently installed.
It executes the program flawlessly. The child draws a letter, then another one, then a whole word, and they look down at what they've done and they are in absolute shock.
They genuinely didn't know they could do it.
They had no idea. They didn't struggle for months. They didn't suffer through endless corrections. It just happened. The source quotes a child's reaction to this moment, and it gives me chills every single time I read it. The child looks at their creation and shouts, "My hand can speak."
My hand can speak. Wow, that's profound.
Think about the profundity of that statement for a moment. It isn't, "I wrote a letter." It isn't, "I followed the instructions." It is, "My hand has a voice." It's the discovery of a superpower they never knew they possessed.
That is a complete 180-degree paradigm shift from the nightmare scenario we started with. In the nightmare, writing is a demand from the adult. It's a chore imposed on the child. In the explosion, writing is a discovery by the child. It's a power that comes from within.
Exactly. It's a gift they find inside themselves. And because it comes from inside, because it's a discovery of their own power, the reaction isn't relief. It's not compliance. It's pure, unadulterated joy.
And when kids find a new superpower, they don't want to turn it off. They want to use it constantly.
They never want to turn it off. Think of, Spider-Man when he first discovers his webs. He's shooting them everywhere, at buildings, at cars, just to see it happen. These children are the same. They are overcome by this new ability. They want to write on everything. They need to test this power. Can my hand speak on this piece of paper? Yes. Can it speak on the chalkboard? Yes. Can it speak on the floor? Oh, yes.
And we will absolutely get to the floor and the bread in a moment, because that leads to a bit of a scandal. But before we do, there's another layer to this onion that I found really, really counterintuitive in the source material.
The logic of the timeline.
That timeline. The source calls it the reverse logic. And it's so true. If you go to any standard school, or really just ask any parent on the street, what comes first, reading or writing?
They will say reading, without hesitation.
100% of the time. You read the book to the kid, you teach them to recognize the letters, then to read the words, and then much, much later, you teach them to write the words. It's always input, then output. But the source says Montessori completely flipped this.
She flipped it completely on its head. And again, this wasn't just a theory she sat in a chair and dreamed up. She observed it. It was a scientific discovery. She discovered that for the developing mind of a child, writing is actually easier than reading.
Writing is easier than reading. That stops me in my tracks. It feels wrong. Writing involves complex motor skills, spelling, holding the pen just right. Reading seems passive. You just sit there and look at the page. How on earth can writing be easier?
It feels that way to us because we are expert readers. We are adults. We are so fluent, we have completely forgotten the struggle.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that idea of cognitive load. Let's really look at what the brain actually has to do for each task.
Okay, analyze reading for me first. The input side of the equation.
Reading is, at its core, an act of decoding.
Decoding. Okay.
You are looking at a series of symbols, these abstract, squiggly lines on a page, that were created by someone else, by another mind. Your brain has to look at those squiggles analyze them, break them down into individual sounds, then blend those sounds together, and then finally reconstruct a meaning that is completely outside of your own head.
So it's detective work. You're solving a mystery. What did this other person mean when they made this squiggle?
Exactly. It's high-level intellectual analysis. It requires a tremendous amount of abstraction. You are receiving a message from the past, from another person, and you're trying to interpret it. That is incredibly hard work for a young brain that is still trying to make sense of the concrete world around it.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's analyze writing, the output.
Writing, in this Montessori sense, is synthesis. It is an act of building.
Building, not decoding.
Not at all. With writing, you start with something you already know. You have a thought in your own head. Let's say cat. Cars. You know the sound. C-A-T. You know what you mean. The idea is yours. And you simply build it. You take the pieces, the letters you know intimately from the sandpaper, and you assemble them. You construct the word.
So if I'm hearing you right, reading is like taking a complex machine apart to try and figure out how it works. But writing is like building that same machine from a simple kit with instructions you already know.
That is a brilliant analogy. Absolutely brilliant. And the source material actually uses a very similar car analogy to explain this exact point.
Right, the driving analogy. Let's get into that.
The source says that trying to teach reading before writing is like trying to teach someone the complex engineering of an internal combustion engine before you let them learn how to drive the car.
That makes so much sense. Driving is the action. It's the practical use. Engineering is the deep, abstract understanding of the mechanism.
Precisely. Writing is driving the car. It is the active, natural, purposeful use of the skill. When a child writes, they are the active agent. They are in the driver's seat. They are the creator. And creation is always more natural, more joyful, and frankly, easier for a child than passive, abstract analysis.
And the source mentioned a bridge being built here, a bridge between the hand and the brain. How does that fit in?
Yes. This goes right back to the sandpaper letters. It's a crucial detail. When the child is introduced to the letter, they don't just touch it in silence. As they trace it, the adult says the sound. And then the child is invited to do the same.
So they trace the M with their fingers and they say the sound at the same time.
Right. What they are doing is forging a powerful link. They are linking the tactile sensation, the feeling on the finger, with the auditory sound and with the visual shape. They were building a strong, multisensory neurological bridge. Touch plus sound plus sight.
It makes the abstract a letter totally concrete.
Correct. And young children live in a concrete world. They learn through their senses. An M on a printed page is just a drawing. It's an abstraction. But an M cut out of sandpaper that you can feel with your fingers while you make it sound, that is a thing. It's a real object. By building this bridge, the child can create the word. They can build it long before they can necessarily decode it when they see it cold on a page.
So practically speaking, you might actually have a situation where a child writes a full sentence on the chalkboard. But if you ask them to read that same sentence back to you 10 minutes later, they might struggle.
It happens all the time in Montessori environments, and it absolutely confuses parents and visitors who aren't familiar with the process. They see a child carefully write out "the sun is hot," and they're amazed. They say, "Oh, that's wonderful. Can you read that to me?" And the child looks at the sentence they just wrote and says, "I don't know."
Because the act of writing was synthesis, putting the known pieces together, but the act of reading is analysis, taking the unknown pieces apart. And they just haven't mastered analysis yet.
Exactly. But because they have built the word, because they were the architects of that sentence, the reading follows so much more naturally and quickly. They eventually understand how the engine works because they've already been driving the car.
It just flows from the inside out rather than being forced from the outside in?
Inside out is the key phrase for this entire philosophy of education. It truly is.
Which brings us to a very common criticism, or at least maybe a common skepticism.
The skeptic's view.
Yes, I know it well.
The skeptic looks at this, these very young kids, 4 or 5, writing, and says, okay, sure, they're making marks that look like letters. But are they just parroting?
Ah, the parrot argument. Is it just mimicry?
Right. Is the kid just copying what the teacher wrote on the board? Are they just memorizing shapes like a robot without any real understanding? Because, we've all seen that kind of education. Rote memorization. And it is a very valid fear. We don't want to create robots. We want to build expressive human beings.
Yeah.
But the source material addresses this head on. The expert in the text is incredibly emphatic. When asked directly if this is just parroting, the answer is a single word: never.
Never. That's pretty definitive. No wiggle room there.
None at all. And here is the simple, logical reason why. Copying is boring.
It really is. I remember hating it in school.
It's soul-crushing. If you tell a child, copy this sentence 10 times, what happens to their energy, to their spirit? It just plummets. It becomes a chore, a punishment. You do not get an explosion from copying. You don't get unadulterated joy from copying.
No, you get compliance, maybe resignation, but you don't get fireworks.
Exactly. The explosion, the joy, the writing on the bread, all of that comes from expression.
Expression. Okay, so they aren't writing just to make shapes correctly. They are writing because they have something to say.
They are communicating. They are bursting with things to say. And there is another brilliant tool that helps prove this, which the source also mentions. We talked about the sandpaper letters for preparing the hand. But there is another tool called the movable alphabet.
The movable alphabet. Is this anything like those little magnetic letters you put on the refrigerator?
A very similar concept, yes, but designed for this specific purpose. It's a large, compartmentalized wooden box filled with wooden or plastic letters, lots of copies of each letter. And the child can take this box to a rug on the floor and just arrange them.
So they can build words and even whole sentences without having to hold a pencil at all.
Exactly. It's another stroke of genius because it separates the mental act from the physical act again, but in a different way. Maybe the child's hand is still a bit weak or gets tired easily. Maybe their pencil grip isn't perfect yet, but their mind wants to speak. Their soul wants to express itself. So they use the movable letters to write their thoughts.
And what do they write? I mean, are they writing sentences from a book, like the cat sat on the mat?
No, not at all. That would be copying
No.
again. No, they write their souls.
That is a very poetic way to put it. They write their souls. What does that look like in a 4-year-old?
The source gives us some beautiful, simple examples. They write things like, I love my mother, or the sun is hot.
Simple truths, personal truths.
Simple, but deeply personal and powerful. Why does a 4-year-old child take the time to spell out, I love my mother? Because it is a massive, overwhelming feeling inside of them. It is a fundamental truth they carry in their being. And suddenly, for the first time in their life, they have a tool to take that feeling that's inside and make it visible on the outside.
It's the difference between a photocopier and an artist. A photocopier just repeats an image. An artist expresses an internal state.
Yes, that's it, exactly. And that is where the ownership comes in. That's where the joy comes from. It's from owning their own voice.
And if you think about how powerless a child usually is in the grand scheme of things, they're told when to eat, when to sleep, where to sit, what to wear.
They're small giants living in a world of big people who control everything.
And then suddenly they're given this code, this secret power. They have this ability to leave a permanent mark on the world, to say, I'm here, I feel this is my thought.
Writing becomes a tool of freedom. It is pure empowerment. And when a human being of any age, but especially a child, feels that sense of empowerment and agency, the energy release is just massive.
Which explains why they can't stop, why it becomes this all-consuming passion.
They can't stop. They don't want to stop. Why would you ever want to stop using a newfound superpower?
And this brings us to the messiest, most colorful, and honestly my favorite part of our story today, the sheer volume of this writing and the interesting choice of locations.
The scandal, as it came to be known.
The loaf of bread scandal. I tease this in the intro, but we really need the details. This is a true story from the early days of Montessori's work in the slums of Italy, right?
Yes. From the very first Casa dei Bambini, the children's house in Rome. These were working-class families. Life was not easy.
Yeah.
And bread was not just a snack, it was a staple. It was survival. It was precious.
Okay, so set the scene for us.
You have these mothers. They're hardworking. They're sending their young children to this new experimental school run by this woman doctor. They're hoping the children will learn some discipline, maybe some manners, stay out of trouble. And then one day, a group of these mothers come to see Dr. Montessori. And they are not happy. They are angry.
They're there to file a formal complaint.
They are absolutely horrified. They come in and they say, Doctor, you have to do something. My child is writing on everything.
On everything.
The source lists the locations where this writing was appearing, the walls of their small apartments, the floors, the furniture, the front doors.
It sounds like an epidemic of graffiti.
To these mothers, it was vandalism. They were saying, I sent my child to school to learn to be good, and now he is coming home and ruining the house. And the climax of the complaint, the thing that really pushed them over the edge, was the bread.
The bread.
Imagine a mother has just bought or baked a fresh, crusty loaf of bread for the family's dinner. She turns her back for just 1 second, and her child, overcome with this unstoppable urge to write, sees the crust of the bread as a perfect, blank canvas, a miniature blackboard.
And they're scratching into it with a stick or using a piece of chalk or something.
The source implies they were writing on it, yes, perhaps carving into the crust or using whatever marker they could find. But the point was, this writing impulse had invaded the dinner table. It had crossed a sacred line.
And the mothers saw this as the ultimate sign of disrespect.
They saw it as naughtiness, disobedience, defiance. Their interpretation was, my kid is out of control.
But Montessori, she looked at the same behavior and saw something completely different.
Completely.
Yeah.
This is the absolute genius of her scientific observation. She didn't look at the dirty wall or the ruined loaf of bread. She looked past that. She looked at the child. And she interpreted this behavior not as a discipline problem, but as clear evidence of vital energy.
Vital energy. That sounds almost spiritual or like something from biology.
It is the life force of development itself. Think of a powerful river. If you build a dam to hold it back, and then that dam finally breaks, what happens?
Water goes everywhere. It floods the whole valley. It's chaotic.
It's messy. It's chaotic. It can be destructive. But it proves the immense power of the water that was being held back. Montessori saw that these children were so full of the joy of writing, so full of this new capacity for expression, that it was literally overflowing from them. They couldn't contain it.
So it wasn't that they were trying to be bad kids. It was that they couldn't help being writers. The urge was too strong.
Exactly. The title of our source says it all. Words can't wait. The internal impulse to declare, my hand can speak, I can write, was stronger than the external rule about not writing on the wall.
So how do we handle that? Because, I mean, let's be practical. As a parent, I don't really want chalk all over my walls.
Of course not. And we certainly don't want them ruining the family's food. But the adult's reaction in that moment is what matters. And this connects so deeply to the Alma-Haba Foundation's definition of service.
Service, love for all, service for everyone. How does a kid writing on a loaf of bread connect to the concept of service?
The source explains that service, in this educational context, is about the true role of the adult. And it has two distinct parts. First, there's the service of providing the right tools. The sandpaper letters, the movable alphabet, the preparation of the hand.
That's the easy part, right? Buying the gear, setting up the environment.
It's the more straightforward part, yes. But the second part is the much harder part. True service means respecting the explosion when it comes.
Respecting the mess.
Respecting the miracle that is happening inside the mess. The adult's first gut instinct is to punish. It's to say, bad boy, stop that right now. Look what you did. But if you do that, what are you actually crushing in that moment?
You're crushing the joy. You're telling them that this amazing superpower they just discovered is actually bad.
You are extinguishing the spark. You are turning their newfound superpower back into a shameful act. So service means shifting your entire perspective. It means training yourself to see past the chalk dust. Instead of seeing a vandal, you see a writer being born.
Okay, so what do you do in that moment? The kid is at the wall with chalk in hand.
You celebrate. You get down on their level and you say with genuine excitement, oh my goodness, you wrote the word table on the table. Look at those beautiful letters. That is amazing.
You validate the effort, not condemn the location.
You validate the voice, you celebrate the writer, and then only after you've celebrated, you redirect the energy. You say, you have so much to say, your hand has so many words in it. This wall is a little small. Let's find a giant roll of paper and tape it all over the wall so you can write even bigger.
You don't build a dam to stop the river. You dig a new channel for it to flow in.
Exactly. You serve the vital energy by guiding it, not by blocking it or punishing it.
That is such a crucial distinction. It reframes the adult's role completely. We're not meant to be suppressors. We're meant to be builders.
We're meant to be the gardeners. If a plant starts to grow too fast and too big for its pot, you don't step on it to make it stop. You give it a bigger pot. You give it a trellis to climb.
Give it a trellis. I love that. It really does change the entire job description of a parent, from policeman to facilitator.
And that is the absolute essence of building humans. We are facilitating the child's self-construction. If we punish the explosion, we risk damaging the very foundation of their love for learning. But if we serve it, if we guide it, we help build a human who feels confident, expressive, and heard.
And at the end of the day, the chalk washes off the wall.
The chalk washes off, the bread gets eaten. But the deep internal feeling of my voice matters, that lasts a lifetime.
Wow. This has been such a journey today. We started with the nightmare of the dotted lines and the tears, and we went through the sandpaper touch, the reverse logic of the car engine, and we ended up with graffiti on lunch.
It's a beautiful arc, isn't it? And it all stems from that one core radical idea, respecting the true nature of the child.
So let's bring this all home for our listeners. We have covered a lot of ground here, a lot of big ideas. If someone is listening to this, maybe they have a toddler or a preschooler, or maybe they just care about how humans learn. What are the key actionable takeaways?
I would sum it up with maybe 3 main headlines. First, and this is the big one, stop the tracing and start the touching.
Stop the tracing, start the touching. I like that.
Don't force the mental act of writing in a workbook before the physical act is ready. Use multisensory tools like sandpaper letters to let the child store the movement naturally. Let them play with the texture. Make it a joy, not a task.
Okay, number 2.
Trust the reverse logic. Don't obsess over making them read first. Let them build words. Let them create. Understand that writing, which is really expressing the self, is the most natural first step to a lifetime of literacy. Reading will follow.
And the third and final takeaway.
When the explosion happens, and if you prepare the ground, it will come. Don't be the mother complaining about the bread. Be the guide who celebrates the birth of a writer.
Be the one who runs to get them a bigger piece of paper.
Exactly. See the miracle and support the miracle.
And always remember that they aren't just parrots repeating sounds. They are expressing their souls. The big things. I love my mother. The sun is hot. These are the first declarations of a free and thinking human being.
Truly. It is all about intellectual and spiritual freedom.
Now, I know our listeners are going to be digesting this for a while. It's a lot to think about. But we are not done. This series is just heating up.
Oh, we are just getting started. In our next deep dive, which will be episode 19, we are going to take a turn that I think will surprise a lot of people.
Oh, what's on the menu for next time?
We're going to discuss the spirit's impact on health.
The spirit's impact on health. That sounds almost medical.
It is, but it's also deeply psychological. We so often think of a child's health in terms of just germs and vitamins and sleep. But we are going to explore the scientific observations of how a happy soul, a respected and spirited child, actually creates a stronger, more resilient physical vessel. We're going to talk about the connection between joy and immunity.
I cannot wait for that. It sounds like we are going to be challenging even more of our basic assumptions about childhood.
We certainly will be.
But for now, if you've been listening and you want to unlock the hidden writer in your child, if you want to see these sandpaper letters for yourself or read the full detailed stories of these discoveries, you have to go to the source.
Yes, please. I encourage you to visit the Dar el-Khalima Library. You can find them online at darelkalima.com. That's DARELKLEMA.com. And the specific book that covers all of these discoveries in beautiful detail, and it truly is a masterpiece, is The Secret of Childhood by Dr. Maria Montessori.
The Secret of Childhood. Grab a copy, read the chapter on the explosion of writing. I promise it will change how you view education forever.
Absolutely. Go out there and build the human.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this explosion of knowledge today. It was, as always, a pleasure.
It was my privilege. Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners for being part of this Building Humans community. Remember, whether you are a parent, a teacher, or just a lifelong learner, keep looking for that vital energy in the people around you, young and old.
And as always, love for all, service for everyone.
Love for all, service for everyone. We'll see you next time.